Great. So we can start. I want to welcome you to the Mastering Brushes in Photoshop. And I'm going to ask you a few questions before we start. Did you use Photoshop before?
A bit,
Uh-huh.
but it's the tool I understand the least. I do well with Illustrator, but Photoshop, for some reason, the layering, the mask.
The mask, yeah. And then brushes probably you didn't use before. So we're going to look at brushes. And the reason we're looking at brushes because you can paint a lot in Photoshop. People think you cannot paint with Photoshop. You can only paint with, let's say, Fresco and other software that you have on device, but you actually can do a lot of paintings in Photoshop. I did bring my tablet today. This is my small tablet that I have. I have a bigger one at home. All the brushes in Photoshop are pressure sensitive. So working with laptop and the trackpad, it will do some stuff, but it doesn't take really the quality of the brushes. This is not the best tablet that I have. It's the small one. So you'll see I will go to the trackpad a little bit in between. But at home, I have a better tablet, and I use tablet the whole time just to take advantage of the pressure sensitivity. So I kind of prepared a small PDF. I don't like to do slideshows and things in kind of classes like this, because when you do a slideshow, you don't kind of learn anything. So I'm talking a little bit about brushes. It's a crucial tool in Photoshop. You do all kind of stuff with brushes to add stuff to your files and creation. And then we're going to talk about how to create a brush, what kind of brushes you create, and the difference between the brushes in Illustrator and in Photoshop, because it's two different animals. It's just completely different. And people kind of like say, why can you do that? Because these are pixel-based brushes, and that's what it is in Photoshop. So I'm kind of talking a little bit how to work with it, working with the Wacom Intuos 504, and this is actually the panel for the brushes. And it just gave some information about stuff that we might do today in the class. Probably we're going to do like the necklace and maybe the bubble brush, and then maybe kind of like draw stuff with pressure brushes. And then here is a combination of brushes and combination of composites together. So you can see the ideas of what you can do over here. This is completely actually done with Photoshop on the iPad. And all what I did over here is using brushes. I didn't change the composition or anything. I took a nice picture and then I just took it kind of around, and everything that you see, I even made the brushes from the person that you see here. So you can make some brushes from people. I did put important, oops, look at this, important links. That's not okay. Well, we're going to have to go in and change that in a minute. So, oh, why do I do that? Important links over here. So I have it here. And then what you see over here, Photoshop new brushes, Illustrator brushes. If you want to see some stuff, I do live streaming on Behance and I do stuff on brushes. But what I have over here, all the way down, all about brushes, this is something really cool. So if you copy it, and then if you go to your, look what I have here, a lot of stuff. If you paste it over here, you're basically going to see everything about brushes. So I made kind of like a document that has a link and everything has about brushes. So instead of sending a separate PDF, you have everything about brushes in Photoshop, kind of like step by step by step. You see that? Everything that we're going to do and talk about, you have it over here in this document. So this is what we have over here. But I'm going to jump directly into Photoshop. And then what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take away this hiding floating meeting control because we don't want to see that. I am recording it and I'm going to upload it probably tomorrow so you can look at it again. And what do you have over here? So this is the regular workspace in Photoshop. And if I go to Window and Workspace, you can see this, the Essential Workspace. However, you have a painting workspace too. you see over here, all the way down, there is a painting workspace. And as soon as I have a painting workspace, something changed on the on the right side with the panels, and I see that it's a little bit different than the other workspace. I'm actually going to change it again to 2 columns over here, so I can see it right away here. And then I have my swatches, I have my navigator panel. So I might do a little change over here. I'm just going to bring the navigator panel to the side over here. I have the brush panel, and I do have the brush setting as well. So this is what's important to use right now. So if you use Photoshop brushes, and in your case, you didn't so much, maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, it was a little bit different. It had a certain preset to it, and then you can have taken any brush that somebody created and make it a different brush. It is a different ball game right now. Every brush has its own little preferences right away when you start working. So what I'm going to do now, I'm actually going to do File, and I'm going to say New. I'm just going to open a new file, and then I'm going to do it 8.5 by 11 and 300 ppi, because I like to work with high res with brushes. And the reason you want to work with high res when you establish brushes as well, because the size that you establish when you capture brushes, that's the original size. So if you make it a lot bigger, it's going to be pixelated. It's absolutely resolution dependent, everything that you do in Photoshop. And that's why it's kind of like confusing a little bit. I'm just going to click on Create, and look what I have here. I just have the first artboard over here, and I'm going to go to my Move tool over here, and right away, I'm actually going to go in and take the Layers panel and bring it out here. And there is something new in my preferences right now with brushes. If I go to Command K, this is my Photoshop preferences. You will see all the way down to the right side, you have a new area here that says create new layer when brushing. And by default, it's turned on. What does it mean? It means that as soon as you draw on something, it will jump to a new layer because it is destructive. Brushes are completely destructive. So before that, you had to go in and start a new layer. You don't need to do it anymore if this is turned on. And then it will start doing layers, 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 as many as you want. Of course, you can stay in the same layer. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to go to my brush panel. This is my default brush panel that I have here. And then default one, and I'm going to go and kind of delete the one that I have. And you can see I have general brushes, dry brushes, wet brushes, and special effect brushes. I don't know if you have the special effect brushes. You do have. So this is kind of like the default. And the reason I'm asking, because I add a lot of brushes all the time. For today, I took them away and saved them somewhere on the side. So what do you have in the flyout menu of the brushes? You have the names of the brushes, the brush tip, get more brushes. So what does it mean, get more brushes? If I click on get more brushes, it is going to go to an Adobe site, and then you're going to see some free brushes that you get. I highly recommend, we don't have to do it today, but highly recommend to download some of them. I actually download all of them and have them on a separate kind of like drive somewhere. And I'll tell you why, in case one day they're not going to offer it for free, maybe. I have it. And this is by a guy that called Kyle. He is the brushes guru in Photoshop, and that's his job. How great is his job? He creates brushes the whole time. He also streams on Behance and shows how he draws. Of course, he's an amazing artist. So when you say, well, I'm doodling something with this brush, you look at him like, okay, guy, you doodle. I mean, we don't know how to doodle like this. But if I'm just going to go, let's say, the watercolor and download it. I just downloaded it, and I'm going back to Photoshop. So now I can go to the flyout menu, and I can say import brushes. And then I'm going to go back here to my downloads, and then I see watercolor brushes, click open, and then you can see that I'm gonna have the import brushes right away over here, and I'm gonna have them right away, and I can start kind of like working with the brushes. So you can actually download stuff that you have. You can append default brushes again, in case I'm going to go and delete some of the brushes that I have, which are the default. I also can go in and convert legacy tool brushes. This is the old brushes that I have from before, and I can go to the legacy old brushes. So as soon as I have the legacy old brushes, this is the old brushes that you have over here, and look how many. There's a lot of them all over the place, and then some of them is some kind of duplication, and then you can go back here and you can just see how you see the brushes. So brush bar and show recent brushes. So all the way up in my control, I can see the recent brushes that I used. I can also, if I know the name of the brush, I can research. Of course, I don't remember any of the names, but you can go in and do that and research for that. So now I'm just going to go in and select a simple brush from the general brushes. And I'm going to click on the first one. And then by default, when you work with brushes in Photoshop, automatically it works with the foreground color only. What does it mean? This is your foreground color. So I'm going to double click and let's make it dark red for now. So this is my foreground color right now. And then by default, it's on mine, it is size 13. How do I know that it's size 13? You see the option bar all the way up in the menu bar? And the first thing that you see here is the size of the brush. If I click on the arrow, look what you see over here. You see here the brush panel actually. And I can go and change the size. I can also change here the hardness. So if it's all the way to the left, it's a very soft brush. If it's all the way to the right, it's a hard brush. And of course, in between, it's going to be in between. I'm just going to do it very soft, and I'm going to make the size maybe to 75. Because I'm using the Wacom tablet, you can see the brush size, and look at this. I'm going to start actually drawing over here and look at the brush. So because I'm using the pressure sensitive brush, I can actually go in and click and drag and make it kind of like harder. And all the way up in my control, I can click on the symbol next to the one that looks like butterfly. And then this one is going to make it actually pressure sensitive. So you can see here, look if I'm drawing with it. If I'm going to my trackpad, you see it doesn't really, the trackpad is what you see, it's what you get. So this is actually the pressure sensitivity that you went all the way up there. Next to it, you can actually work with symmetry with brushes, which is something actually new for the last 2-3 years. And I can show you because that's really awesome. You can do a lot of fun stuff with it. A lot of people don't use it. They don't know it's there. They think it's a little butterfly, but it is working with symmetry over here. And then all the way up here, you can see enhance airbrush if you have. It's all correct. All the enhancement, it's actually talk about the pressure sensitive pens that you have. And then all the way to the left, you see always use pressure for opacity. When turn off, brushes preset will do regular. So if I click here, now it's going to be my pressure sensitivity. You see that? And now I'm doing it hard. So if you want to do it differently, you need to change the sensitivity here in your layers panel. So I'm just going to go back here and then fill the area kind of with white again, because I did it directly on the background. And then because I have just a regular background, I will go in and add a new layer right now. And I'm going to call it practice. Because really what we want to do is look at this brush. So I'm just going to start with this new brush over here. I'm actually going to make it just regular because I know you don't have the pressure sensitivity, so that's okay. And what if while I'm working right now, I want to make it bigger? I can jump all the way up to my control, but also I can go to my brackets on my keyboard. So the right brackets, we're going to make the brush bigger. And the left bracket's going to make the same brush smaller. So I use that all the time when I'm brushing. So I'm just going to make the brush a little bit bigger and look at my brush now. Do you see that it has some soft edges to it? I'm going to go into the brush preset. I'm just going to do it the other side and look at that. This is when the brush has hard edges. Same brush. So I'm just going to go and make it in between. And I want to work with kind of like a soft edges brush. But now I really want to change some stuff. So when do you change all the stuff? Where do you change it? I'm going to collapse it. And then I am going to go to my brush preset, my brush settings. So you have another panel, and that's what happens when you use brushes a lot. When I paint with Photoshop, I have another screen. One has the brushes and all the stuff, and one when you draw, because look at my screen right now, it's all over the place. I might go to the layers panel, and I'm just gonna tab it over here, and I'm gonna look at the brush settings. So let's look at that. On the right in the beginning when you start working, you can go into the word brush over here that takes away the brush panel and brings it back. You can also go into the brush tip shape. So that's the tip shapes that you're going to work with. So here I can work with the size. I can also work with the angle of the brush. You can see right away, look at this. I have a different brush right now. I can also go and work with the roundness of the brush. Maybe I want to make it very hard edges or very soft edges again. And I do see a preview. And I'm going to work with the spacing. And look what I have right now. If I try it right now, it's already a different brush. And then I'm going to go to the setting on the left side. So this brush by default, I didn't do it. They told me that something changed in the shape dynamics. What does it mean? If I click on it, they're telling you stuff about this dynamics. So the jitter is the randomness of the brush, the random of the size that you have. So look at that, different sizes. And I'm just going to play a little bit with it. Can I go into scattering? If I click on the word scattering, and I'm going to go for both axes, and look what I'm doing now. Look what's going on now. Now when I'm working with the brush, it is absolutely different. The thing to understand though, if I really like this brush right now, I got to save it. Because if I don't save this brush and I jump over to another brush, this is gone all the way. So how do I save it? You can go all the way up to your option bar and click on the add brush preset or create a new brush preset. Go also to the brushes panel and click on the plus sign. I usually go to the brush setting because that's what I do it. And I click, and this is the dialog box that you have. And then it has the old name. And one of the funny things with brushes, when you upload Kyle's brushes, he gives them all kind of weird, funny names. I always ask him, how did you find this name? And he said, well, I'm creating different names so I know what it is. So let's say I'm going to call that scattered dots. And then they're going to ask you, would you like to capture the size in the preset? So when you're looking in the preset, do you want to see what size you did? Do you want to include the tool settings? So it's going to include everything that you did to this brush. And then would you like to include the color? Why not? Maybe you wanted to include this red. If I click OK, look what I have over here. I'm starting building my brushes right now. And these are going to be my brushes, right? So you can do that with your name and everything and start actually building brushes, panels anytime that you want. So now if I double click and go, let's say to blue, And then I'm going to draw with blue. That's okay. But as soon as I'm going to this brush, look what happens. It will remember the colors. So these are little things that we can do. But one thing to remember, this is a brush, which they call it like a regular brush. You do have other drawing tools in Photoshop that you can save it also as a brush as well. But we're going to do some more stuff with it. So because it's on a layer, I'm going to do select all, Command A and delete, and deselect, Command D. So I'm going to do the practice, but now I want to do something else. I want to add something to this brush and maybe save it differently. So I'm going to double click on the background color. And then I'm just going to make it dark blue. By default, if I draw now, the brush that I just made doesn't even know that I have a blue background. But now I'm going to go to the brush and I'm going to go to color dynamics. So what does it mean, color dynamics? You tell the brush that they can go from foreground to background and cycle through the colors of the foreground and background the way you tell it how to do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say apply per tip, and I'm going all the way to 100. I'm going to make this brush a little bit bigger. So I'm clicking on my right bracket right now. And this is the same brush, and look at that. It goes from red to blue. Because I had this brush, I had it scattering. I don't want to scatter it anymore. So look what I have now, from red to blue. I can jump over here and I'm going to say, I want to make more spacing. And I don't want to do a shape dynamic. So look at that. So different things that I can do here just reflect upon what I'm doing at the moment. If I really want to save that right now, again, I'm going to click and then I'm going to call it dots with dual colors. Oh, or maybe something else with it. And then look at that, I have it over here. But now, what if I don't like the dual colors that I have over here? I'm going to go in to the shape dynamic again, and maybe I'm going to add some more colors to the mix. And maybe I'm going to change the saturation, and maybe the brightness, and maybe the purity. And look at that. He went, see how it works? It's almost endless when you have the stuff over here. And then I can go in and again, save it and give it another name over here and click OK. And look what I have over here. I'm starting building my brushes that I have. I can also go, let's say, to texture. If I do select all, Command A and delete, I have a clean looking panel over here. And then this one all the way up, these are the patterns that I have in Photoshop. And this is the default. Maybe I don't like the default. So I'm going to go and click on the water pattern. And now I'm looking to kind of draw something. And I might go into the scattering and click again. And maybe I don't want to do any spacing. So look at that. If I don't want to have any spacing, look at the brush. It looks like a tube. And then I'm going to do the spacing over here. And then kind of rotate it. And now it's going to be an impressionistic brush, maybe. But if I want to add some texture to it, I'm going to look, why am I not seeing the texture right now? I'm going to change over here in the mode, and I'm going to change that, let's say, to subtract. And in subtract, you can start seeing some kind of texture. I might go back here to multiply and look at that. So it's the same brush, but now this brush has texture. Does that make sense? If I don't want it to be color dynamic, I'm basically going to have the brush, and this is the brush that I can start working with. And then I can click on that, and I can call it texture 1. So this is basically creating different kind of brushes that I have and start building. So I'm going to look at what I have already. And in the dry brush, let's look what I have in dry brush. I have one that says Kyle Ultimate Pencil. So this is his pencil that he has. And then if I make it a little bit bigger, this is a brush that he made and he called it a pencil brush. So how did he do it? He went in and did shape dynamic. He went to a texture. It chose some texture. He clicked on the word transfer. So it kind of transfer the stuff that you have with some kind of opacity. And he went to the smoothing area to smooth the brush that he has. So if I want to change this brush, I can go in and change that. And a lot of time, this is what I'm going to do. I will take a brush that I like ahead of time and say, well, how can I make it mine to the stuff that I want to do? The color can be changed at any time. So the brushes has no colors. No colors and no depth either. What does it mean? If I'm going to go and delete that, and I'm going to go to this brush, you see there's no depth. But if I'm going to my layers panel, and I'm going to double click on practice, and I'm going to add a drop shadow to the layer, and maybe even a bevel and emboss, and then do a different depth. Look what happened to my brush right now. Now, if I'm drawing on this layer automatically, do you see the brush? The brush looks a little bit different, but it's not the brush. It is the layer that you have right now. So there's no depth there, but I can change it because my layer, if I didn't want to have a drop shadow, look at that. I changed the drop shadow. And now I just have a bevel and emboss, or I can change the bevel and emboss that I have. But now maybe I want to change some stuff. So I'm going to go to the texture. He did height over here, and I'm going to change a different kind of texture. And now I'm going to draw here, and look at that. I have a different kind of texture completely, and I'm going to start building it. So what can you do in this one? Maybe you're going to go into foreground green and background another darker green. And then you can go to color dynamic and maybe start building it, almost looking like I have trees or I have some kind of landscape that I'm drawing, and I'm changing the size of the brush as I go to create a fun looking background. Brushes also have blending modes. So the layer has blending mode too, but if I'm going to this brush and I'm going to click on the blending mode, and let's say I'm going to do it multiply. Look at that. Now I'm getting the same brush a little darker when I go over it. If I change that, let's say to soft light, you can see over here that's going to be a little lighter on the area that I'm drawing. So it can stay with the same color, but I can change the blending mode of my brushes. Does that make sense? So even if I change maybe the foreground of this brush, and then I'm still with a different kind of blending mode, and let's say I'm going to make a crazy blending mode like difference, look what happens. So difference is going to make it a lot darker on the sides or whatever I have. I did not change the brush. I did not change the color. I'm just changing the blending mode. So a shortcut to change blending mode, if you use the brush panel, you hold on the shift key and click on the plus sign, and you'll see all the way up in your option bar, the blending is changing. If you want to change the blending mode of the layer, you have to go to the layer move tool. It is the same shortcut, but now I'm going to change the blending mode of the layer itself. So there's two different entities. All the drawing brushes have also some kind of blending mode to work with it. Another thing with brushes also, when you work with the regular brushes. You basically can go in and change anything that you want. So I might go in, let's say, to the wet media brushes. What do I have in the wet media? I have a regular brush, because you can see the symbol, another regular brush. But look at the next brush next to it. If I go and make it a lot bigger and draw on the white area, nothing is happening. And you're going to say, well, maybe my opacity is not okay. Something is actually not really working here. It is not really the opacity or something like that. It's basically, this is a smudge brush. So if I go into an area that I have pixels, this is what this brush is doing, smudging the area that you have. So it's a different kind of brush. So we're going to start looking at the different kind of brushes and how can you create a smudge brush, or how you can create even an eraser brush, how you can create a dodge and burn brush. And the way it works right now, which is different than before, once somebody told it to be a smudge brush, it stays a smudge brush. You can change the properties, but it cannot be a regular brush anymore. It used to be that you can do it. Now this stays a smudge brush. Next to it that you have here, the tiny little symbol, basically this one is a mixer brush, which we're going to look at it again in a minute. And that's a different kind of brush that you have. So if I'm going to go in, depending where I'm working with, that's going to be my mixer brush. And then another smudge brush that you have over here. So you have to start looking at the stuff that you are doing to start with. But I'm just going to go back here and look at special effect brushes. So what do I have here in the special effect brushes? I'm going to go into the last one and set screen 38. And then I'm going to start drawing with it. And look at this brush. Oh, I'm not going to go. Let's say I don't want to have the bevel and emboss right now. And I'm going to select all and delete. And I'm going to just use this screen brush. So how does somebody made a brush like that? It basically made this brush with another brush in it. And it's called dual brush. He had one regular brush, and then he added another brush in it. And the other brush has something called like screen, and he made a special effect brush over here, which is a regular brush. But what happens if you have brushes that has kind of shapes? I don't have any shapes over here. I'm going to go to my legacy brushes, and then I'm going to click on the assorted brushes. And in the assorted brushes, you might have some stuff that has some kind of ornaments. And I'm going to click on ornament 1 and deselect and make it a little bit bigger. And look at that. This is a brush that I made it, and it is an ornament brush. There's another one or another one, and you can see these are small brushes. You see what happened as soon as I made it bigger? They don't look so good. They're pixelated because they are pixels. So how do you make these brushes that has shapes in them? Let's say you have something that says Starburst. And then I'm going to click here, and maybe I'm going to make it a little bigger. And look at this. This is a brush. How do they make that? You can make brush from any shape that you're doing or drawing in Photoshop and make from it another brush. You can also select the brush that you have. But one thing to understand with brushes, the way you do it, you capture it, it doesn't really capture the real colors that you see. It will capture black, white, and transition of grayscale. So let's look at the first one. We're going to make one together. File and open. You can either follow me or you can watch it. You're going to see that I have it in the PDF, and also you'll have the recording. But I'm going to go to the assets. And in the assets, I have brushes 2 items, and in the brushes 2 items, I have brush libraries. If you want to open your own libraries, these some brushes that I downloaded from the Photoshop site, or I made them and put it for you guys. They're only compatible to Photoshop. They are not compatible to Illustrator. So they are 2 different entities. Illustrator can have pixel brushes, but they're absolutely different than Photoshop brushes. So I'm going to click on the assets, and I'm going to click on the bathtub PSD and open this file. And this is a file of a baby over here. What if I wanted to create a bubble brush over here to make it and pretend that he is taking a shower, a bath, and have some bubbles in his area. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm actually going to go to his layers panel. And I want to add a background because a lot of time with brushes, it is an illusion of colors because the brushes themselves has grayscale in them. I'm going to go to the dark blue and drag and drop it and then put it all the way down that I do have a a dark blue background. If I double click on the fill layer, I can even make it a lot darker. And this is what I have in the beginning. Now I'm going to go to File and Open. And I'm going to go to Images to create brushes. And I have all kind of ink brushes that I put it in one layer. But I also have Make Bubble Brush PSD. It is a friend of mine. She created it long time ago. And then I kind of borrowed the image from her. And then I'm using it because I think it was an awesome idea to create a bubble brush over here. So this is the brush that I have. Not the brush, it's the file. It doesn't look like anything like a bubble. So you can find any other image that gives you an illusion, maybe, the grayscale. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the object selection tool and click and drag and select the circle. So while I'm selecting the circle, I can decide that I want the edges to be a little softer. So if I want to do softer, I can go to select and mask and make it softer. Or if I want to leave it as is, I'm good. All what I need to do right now is as simple as that. If you go to the edit menu bar, you're going to go in here and you see define brush preset. And then it will take actually the name of the file. If you don't select it, if you select it, it's just going to give you a random name. And then you say sample brush 504. So maybe it's the number 500 brushes that I sampled in the last few months. And I can call it bubble 1. And you see mine is, the size is 899. Your size could be a little bit different depending how you saved it. I'm going to click OK. But it's already a brush. Do you see here? It's a brush. But maybe I want to go in and look at the details of this brush. So I might go to Image and Adjustment, and I might go into my levels and make it a little darker. So I'm going to go to the default and I'm going to say Increase Contrast. Or I'm going to go in Mid-tone Brighter. Or I'm going to go into the default. Or I'm just going to go in and make it a lot with details. You see, I'm just randomly making it look a little bit different. Not sure this is what I want, but I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to go to Edit, Define Brush Preset again. And I'm going to call it Dark Bubble, just to let me know that I did something different. And I can do different sizes to the same file, different intonation to it until I'm happy. But now I want to test it. So I'm going to jump over to the bathtub. Look at the brush. It's good that I open a big brush because this file is smaller. So I already have a bigger brush than I needed. So taking it down, cool, right? It's okay. The resolution is fine. I also can go in now and I'm going to go to my brackets and make it a little smaller. But I'm not sure that I want this one, the dark one. I'm gonna go to the lighter one and I'm gonna make it a little smaller. And now I'm just gonna go and I can open a new layer, or I can try to click and drag on it and I'm gonna open a new layer and I'm gonna go and call it test. And I'm going to double click its bubbles. So what color should I do? Maybe kind of off-whitish. Who knows, right? Or maybe very white. But then I want to figure out what am I going to do with the brush setting. So I'm going to go in to the spacing. And look at that. I have spacing already. I'm going to go to the shape dynamic. And in the jitter, I'm going to change it to different kind of sizes. I might go to the scattering and then click a little bit and look at the brushes, I mean, the bubbles now. And now I might go and try it. So look at that. This is the brushes that I'm doing. And if I like it, that's going to be my bubble. It does look like a bubble, kind of, right? It gave me the illusion. If I do a different color, it's not going to do the same illusion. So this is the thing that you have to take in consideration. I chose the right thing here. So on a dark background, it looks awesome. If it was on a different background, it might look absolutely like, I don't know, a circle with dots in there. And I'm going to save it. And then I'm going to call it bubble all the way. Because that's different than the regular bubble. Because this one has the preset. I'm going to go in and I want to look at the dark bubble that I have. So I'm going to go into the bubble that I had before, and then I'm going to go into the dark bubble and look at that. You see, because I didn't save it yet, it's already went to the default. And this is the dark bubble. It doesn't look so good. You see that? It has some kind of bubbly in it, but I don't have a lot of stuff. So maybe I should have made it a lot lighter that I have. So if I want to test it really, now I'm going to make a new layer, and then I'm just going to go in and go bubbles all the way. And then I'm just going to go in here and look at that. Now I have my bubbles and I have the bubble brush that I'm working over here with it. So this is how you can make any kind of brushes that you want to do. But one thing to understand, what if you wanted to have the head of the kid and you want a brush that looks like a baby? So it's going to be a little odd right now, but I'm going to turn off, and I'm actually have a selection already. So I'm loading the selection that I made, but I really just want to have the head over here. So I might go to my selection tool, hold down my option key, and I'm going to go in and subtract from selection. So I'm subtracting the rest of the body from the selection. So now I have just the kid, and the kid and the head is actually a selection. All what I need to do is edit define brush preset. And I'm going to call it baby. Might be weird. I'm going to jump over to my demo file over here. And look what I have. I already have the baby. But in this case, look how small is the brush, because I was in a smaller area. Now I'm in a 300 ppi. So, and if I go into the color, and look at that. This is the baby. I don't have the baby with a nice little skin. The baby is actually, it's almost like a stamp. But if I wanted to make it bigger for this area, it is going to start being pixelated. So I'd rather, if I capture something, I want to capture it actually with high res and go back to low res. If you wanted a baby like this to be really with the skin colors and everything, that's in Illustrator. In Photoshop, it's based on the black, white, and transition of gray. So I could have gone all the way over here to the bathtub. And if I wanted it to be kind of grayish looking to create a brush from it, and maybe it's better off that I'm going to go back here and then I'm going to go in to the area. I'm going to click on that. And I'm going to go to the adjustment and maybe desaturate him. So you can see here, I can see the black and white over here. If I made a brush from that, and then I'm going to call it head, black and white, it might be a different kind of brush. It might look a little bit different over here when I'm going to start working with it. Maybe I'm going to have more detail with the black and white image that I have. So when I create brushes in Photoshop, I really try to make them in the beginning black and white if I can. If not, the machine is going to do. But what if I don't know what to do? You just want to draw something. So I'm just going to go to File and New. Purposely, I'm doing 300 ppi. I'm going to go to a new layer. And I'm going to go to any brush. I'm going to start on the simple round brush that I have over here, the general brushes, and I'm going to click on soft round, and I'm going to make it a lot smaller. And maybe I'm going to go in and work with black and white. So I have some black foreground, but look what I'm doing right now. I'm going to click on, I call it the butterfly because it does look like a butterfly. And this is the symmetry brushes. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to say radial symmetry. And depending how symmetry you want to have, maybe I'm going to start with, let's say, 8. And I'm going to go and I'm on a different layer. And then I'm going to start drawing. Look what I'm doing. I just drew. I'm going to make this brush a little smaller now. I'm going to double click and make it kind of a lot lighter. And then I am going to do a new layer. Why? Because I don't want them to overwrite each other. And then I'm going to go back here and do stuff like that. And then I'm just going to double click. And now I'm going to make it a lot lighter. And then look at this. And I'm playing. I'm just doing something. I don't even know what I'm doing exactly, right? So look what I'm doing. I'm just playing. Now I'm going to tell it, I don't want it to be any more asymmetry. And I'm going to go to the 3 layers, hold on the Shift key, select the 3 of them. And in the flyout menu, I'm going to make that to a smart object. And smart object makes it all looks like it is merged, but behind the scene, it's not really merged because it will have all the elements that you have in your layers in there. Really what I'm doing is command click on the thumbnail of the smart object. Do you see I have a selection here? I'm going to say edit, define brush preset. And I'm going to call it Symmetry 1. And I have a brush already. And I'm deselecting. And now I'm going to check it out. This is the original. Do you see that? It's a big brush. So if I want to check it out, this is the brush already. A weird brush, but that's what I made, right? And sometimes I make stuff that a lot nicer. But now I'm going to go into this brush that I have. And then I'm going to play with the brush setting. I'm going to go in and do the spacing. I'm going to play maybe with scattering if needed. I might go in and even go to color dynamic, and then I'm going to play with the colors and make that from orange to maybe dark yellow. And then I'm gonna make it a little smaller. And then I'm going to start drawing with it. And all of a sudden, it doesn't look so weird. It does look like I have flowers over here, or maybe a bed of flowers if I start drawing one on top of each other. And look what I have over here. I have that, and I made that from the symmetry. So if I click now, I'm going to call it symmetry 2 because that will have all the settings that I have here. And then if I'm going to go to the setting and then make it just saturation, now it's going to go from yellow to orange right now. Does that make sense? And then I can do and draw with it and do all kind of little things with it. So that's the idea of kind of like saving different brushes. Can you save different kind of brushes as well? Yes, you have other drawing tools over here. You can also go back here and place something from, let's say, Illustrator. So if I'm going to do File and Place Embedded, and I'm in Photoshop right now, and in the asset, I have AI files. And look what I have here, a nicer symmetry, because I made that in Illustrator. And look, purposely has a lot of grayscales in it. And while I have it, maybe I'm going to first make it a lot bigger because I don't know where I'm taking it to. So I'm making it bigger. And then I'm going to Command click to load the selection that I have over here. Edit, define brush preset, and look at that. I have the nice symmetry from Illustrator. So I'm going to call it AI brush. And then I am going to turn it off and then deselect. And then if I go back here, this is the brush. Look at this. Kind of cool. I have all the elements that I have there, but now I want to do something with it. So I might go into File and Open, and I'm going to go to another area with brushes, and I'm going to go to the assets, and I'm going to open the girl over here. And then what if I kind of wanted to test this brush? And I'm going to go in and test it right now, make it a little smaller. And what am I clicking on? The brackets. Always. And I'm going to go into maybe color dynamic and maybe making it from one color to another. And then maybe shape dynamic. And maybe I'm going to do the spacing a little bit. That's something that I want to go and work with. And then if that's what I want, that's okay. And maybe a little bit smaller. And look what I'm doing now. I can click and drag and have something like this over here. And now if I double click and make it a bevel and emboss, and maybe even a drop shadow, look what I have over here. She has actually a crown on it. But if I really wanted it a lot better, that actually requires a little more knowledge in Photoshop using the path tool. Because you have a path like in Illustrator in Photoshop, and you can tell the brush, jump on the path. It doesn't say jump on the path, but something like it. What does it mean? I'm going to go to my pen tool. This is my pen tool in Photoshop. I'm going to the tool that says curvature tool. I want to make sure all the way up in my option bar, I have it as a path. And really what I'm doing, I'm going to click and create a path. And now I'm going to go into my brush. I want to make sure I'm saving it. So it's going to be exactly what I wanted. I'm going to open a new layer. So the path is it's a new layer. And I call the new layer necklace. And now I'm going to my path panel. And then if I find my path panel, I'm bringing it over. And all the way down, you have different kind of icons in the bottom of your path panel. And one icon will say stroke. It will stroke it with the tool that you're telling it to. It will stroke with different kind of tools. In this case, I want to stroke it with the brush. And then if I want to make it a little smaller, I'm going to click on stroke and look what happens. I don't want to see the path anymore, but now if I double click, bevel and emboss, and maybe drop shadow, look what I have over here. I basically stroke the path and I have a little necklace over here. If I don't think it's a good job, I can go to my layer mask. I can go to another kind of brush, make it a little smaller, and then I can go in and fix the stuff that I don't need. So you can see over here, I have actually a necklace that went in to the area that we have. Does that make sense? Perfect. So I'm going to go and continue, and then you can later watch the recording and always ask me and send me some questions if you need to. Okay? Absolutely. Anytime you can go and ask some question while you're doing your brushes, you can go and I can do that. Thank you. So we're going to continue it. And now we're going to create another kind of brush over here. And in this case, we are going to look at the drawing tool and create some brushes from the drawing tools that we have. So I'm going to go to my, over here, I'm going to go to my smudge tool, and I'm going to go to my blur tool, and I'm going to go to my other tool here, and I don't like it the way it is over here. So I'm just going to go back here, and then I'm going to click on that and bring the rest of the brushes that I have over here. So you can see over here in this workspace, the tools are not kind of like together the way I wanted them. So I'm going to go to workspace, and I'm going to go to default, essential default right now. And then I'm going to go workspace and reset my essentials. And then I'm going to bring to that my brush panel. So I have it over here right now. So now what I want to do, I want to look at some drawing tools that I want to go and work with. I'm going to go to File and Open. And I'm going to go to the brushes area. And I'm going to go to my drawing tools. And I'm going to click on the door and then hold on the Command key and click on the Gilly Edgy JPEG. And these are the files that I have over here. I have two kind of files over here. And I do have the door on one, and I have the girl on the other one. I'm going to click on the door right now, and I'm going to a normal brush or any other brush that I have. I'm just going to choose to go to a normal brush. But now I'm going to click on the blur tool. So it is a normal brush, but with the drawing tool, which is blur at the moment. And what I'm going to do is, actually, I'm going to open a new layer. And I'm going to call that blur 1. Now, I'm looking at the option bar. And if you are always in my Photoshop class, I always tell people the option bar is actually your guide. You really need to look at the option bar all the time in Photoshop because that's going to tell you how the tool is behaving. If you don't have the option bar open, you're not going to know how the tool behaves. So I'm going to go here and look at my option bar, and it tells me the size of the blur brush is 60, which is fine. The mode is normal. I can change another mode. The strength is 50, fine with me. And then I have the area says sample all layers. So what does it mean? I opened an empty layer. You'll see it over here. So if I do not click on the sample all layer and do something on the empty layer, I don't see anything because basically this is a transparent layer. But if I'm telling the machine sample all layers, so means the layers below, now when I'm going to my blur, it's actually blurring the door right now. And if I'm going to a bigger brush, now you can see that the door is blurred. And if I turn off the background, look what I have. On and off. I blurred the door and I blurred it to another layer so I can do stuff with it. I can drag and drop it somewhere else. I can also play with my blending mode. So you can see that your brushes are helping you with the environment of the files that you are using. So you're going to create different things just to add a brush to it. Now I'm going to open another layer. And then I'm going, oh, by the way, before opening it, if I wanted to save this brush, I'm going to my brush preset. Because don't forget, if you need to save it, I'm going to click on the plus, and now it is going to be a blur brush. I'm naming it blur so you know, but you can see all the way in the upper right corner, you see the icon of the blur brush. Now this one is a blur brush. It cannot be another brush right now anymore. It is a blur brush that I started to create it from a different regular brush that I have. So I'm going to click on the sharpen. Not crazy about the sharpen brush, but I can go to different kind of brushes. I can go into my chunky charcoal. And then I'm just, oops, I'm going to go back here and Command Z or over here. And then I'm going to make the chunky charcoal. I'm going to make that, you can see here, this is my chunky charcoal over here. So I cannot change it to anything that I have over here because this one decided to be the brush that I have. So I'm going to do it from the general brushes that I have. And then I'm going to go in, and now I'm going to play with this brush. Let me go in and make it a little bit different. I'm going to change the size. I'm going to change the spacing, and I might go in and change the shape dynamic a little bit to change it a little bit, and maybe go in and add some noise to it. Why not? And I'm going to save it, and that's going to be my sharpen brush. And now I'm going to a new layer, click on sample all layers. It will sample the layer below also, but I'm going to sharpen the top of the door over here. And then maybe I'm going to do 100% strength. So you can see that it is sharpened a little bit more. If I turn off, this is what I have right now. I have something that I might use and bring it to other places, and this is the sharpen drawing tool that I have. I have another drawing tool all the way down. This is the smudge brush. I'm gonna go in and add a new layer. You can see that I made it before as a smudge brush before. And now if I go to sample all layers, look how I'm smudging it. I'm basically smudging it with all the elements that I had before. I'm not sure I like it, but this is what I'm doing at the moment. So now this is the entire drawing. Maybe I'm gonna go in and smudge it over here. And then I can go in and let's say I'm smudging it and smudging it all over. And I might put it below. And on top of that, I do have the other area. And look at my door right now. The door has some kind of smudging on it. And then it's a different kind of look that I have. And I do have it already and I saved it before. So if I'm going to look at the brushes, I can see that I saved it. And if I want to save it again, I'm going to click on that and then save it as a smudge brush. And you see the smudge icon. So the same thing is going to work if you are using the dodge, the burn, and the sponge tool. However, these tools are completely destructive because you cannot open another layer to it. So if I'm going to go to this image, I'm going to have to duplicate the layer. And then if I'm going to the dodge tool, I'm going to go in and I'm going to make a hair a little lighter. And I might go to the exposure and make it a little bit more. I might work with the shading and not with the mid-tone. And look what I have over here. I have different kind of shading on her hair, before and after. I can zoom into it. I'm going to make the brush a little smaller. I'm going to click on the exposure and I'm going to go to the eyes and make the eyes a little lighter. And maybe all the white area here, I'm going to make it also a lot lighter. So you don't have the dark spots over here. And then maybe I'm going to go to the mid-tones and make it a little darker. And in a minute, I'm going to say before and after. So you can see over here, I'm doing it to a duplication of a layer, and I can save the brush. So all these brushes, you can start saving them to the brush that you need to work with. I can go to the burn tool, and then I want to go in and make her lips a lot darker. I should have actually duplicate the layer and then make the lips a lot darker. Why am I duplicating it? Because I don't want to have all my mistakes in the same layer. And of course, I can save the brush and have that as a burn brush. Can you do this stuff with other elements? Of course, you can do that with the adjustment layer, but a lot of people choose to work with the brushes to create some stuff and just play with blending mode to create some fun stuff when we're using brushes. I'm just going to do something very kind of like fun right now. I'm just going to open another layer. And I'm really going to go to a simple brush. And I'm going to make it a lot bigger. And I'm going to click. And I'm just going to start actually go into a regular brush. And I'm going to make it a lot bigger. And look what I'm doing. I'm just going in and creating some kind of light source. But now I'm going to my layers panel and make that in an overlay mode. or maybe make that in a soft light mode. So once I have that in a soft light mode, I'm adding some more colors to the area that I have. I might go also to my layer mask icon and then click on the area that I didn't want to get the red light over here, and look at that. Now I have that. I don't want to have the darkness, and look at that. I do have some kind of light coming off from the top to the bottom, and then I'm going to go back here and look at that. So I have some kind of light coming in. I might go into another layer and choose another color. And then go back here and go to a overlay mode or a soft light mode. And then click and drag and create some other kind of colors over here. And go to my mask and take away the color from the face. And look at this case, what I have a nice looking colors on my image just using brushes. I can go between one brush to another one and just create different kind of blending mode. And look at that. If I go back here to hard light, look what I'm getting. If I'm going to the other one, to hard light, oops, let's say go into hard light, look what I'm getting right now. I love that. I'm getting some kind of area over here with hard light, and all what I'm drawing on top of the area, this is what I get here. And then I can go to my layer mask and change the stuff. And look what I have here, kind of like colorful things without any filters. I'm just using it with the brushes and with the blending mode. So with that said, let's look at other brushes that we have. So if I'm going to go in, I'm just going to check to show you so you can start playing with different kind of brushes. I'm going to go to the flyout menu, and I'm going to go to import brushes, and I'm going to click on the watercolor brushes. And this is what I have over here. These are Kyle watercolor brushes. And then if I'm going to go in and create a new layer, and then maybe fill it with white, and then to create a new layer on top of it, you can see at the brushes that you can start playing with. So these guys are watercolor brushes. How were they done over here? And why am I seeing it kind of like in a different way? I'm going to look at the brush setting over here. So I have shape dynamic. I have a scattering to it. I have a texture inside. If I have a dual brush, meaning that I have a new brush inside the other brush that I have. And I also have the transfer. So this one, if I don't have transfer, that's what I'm getting. If I do have the transfer, look at the brush that I have right now. And I can also add to it wet edges if I want. So if I'm going to a different color, this is still going to be the same brush that I'm playing with, and I can go and change it. It makes my own. It's based on pen pressure over here. When you go to the texture, you can see the subtract. You can go and say darken and look at the texture right now. So whatever brushes that you have, you can start playing with them, save it, and have your own brushes. But I want to look at something that people really don't pay attention to it. I call it oldie by goodie. And this one is another kind of brush, which is the art history brush tool. And this is an old-fashioned brush that people kind of stop using it. It is based on your history panel that you have. And then this brush is based on the effect that you are making and based on the clone source of the brush that you have. So I'm going to go to File and Open. And I am going to open again the door. And you know what? Oh, I save the door? I'm going to go in and revert that. And then this is the regular door. So let's say I want to paint on it. And I really don't know how to paint all the way. And I'm going to go in to the area here. And this is what I have from before. And I'm going to go to my beginning. And this is what I have. Actually, you know what? I'm going to close all in order to make sure we're doing it in a better way. And I'm going to go to Recent, and I'm going to open the door. So this is the door that I have. And then if I'm going to my history panel, you can see that I have a snapshot over here. And by default, Photoshop will open a snapshot when you open something new. And if you want to know why, if you go into the history option, you can see automatically create first snapshot. I'm also going to click on allow nonlinear history to be present over here, and then click OK. So what I have over here, this is the snapshot that I have. And now I'm going to go to the art history brush. And I can go into other brushes that I have in my area, brushes that do not have any other special effects to them. I might go into my legacy brushes, and then I might go into maybe legacy brushes, and maybe to assorted brushes or default brushes over here. And in the default brushes, you see kind of like the old-fashioned brushes that you had from before. But I'm clicking on that, and this one is an art brush. I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to call it Art 1. And before looking at anything, I'm going to figure out, maybe I want to go and do shape dynamic to this brush. Maybe I'm going to go in and space it a little bit. And then maybe I'm going to add a texture to it. And in the texture that I have, I might go in and make it multiply. And you can see I have some kind of texture. But now when I have the art brush active, I'm actually can go in and say art brush 1. I'm starting to build presets. So if I'm going to my brushes, I might go in and I put it over here, which is not really cool. And I wanted to go back here. And let's say I'm going to click on that and I'm going to say art brush 1. Because I want to show you that you're going to go in and create, and you have an art brush symbol. But now I'm going to the style over here. And these are the styles that I have. I have tight short, tighter medium, tighter long, loose medium, loose long, dab, tight color. So I'm going to go in to tight long. And I might go into a smaller brush. I can also go to a blending mode if I want to go with that. But I'm going to go in, and I might go into the tolerance and make it a little less, and the area a little less. And look what I'm starting to get. And I'm going to start kind of drawing in the area, and I might go into tight short. And now I'm going to have a shorter brush. And then I'm going to go back here and look before and after. And I'm going to go in and open a new layer. And now I'm just going to go in and click on it. So it's really like using the brush that we're going to do in a minute. And that is going to be your mixer brush. But this is kind of more automatically over here. I shouldn't have done that. And then look at that. I'm going to play with the stuff and start working with it. And then I'm going to start playing with it a little bit. So if you don't know how to draw a little bit, and then you don't want to use the mixer brush, look what I'm doing right now. I can actually say to somebody, I just drew the door with different kind of brushes, and I really love it because look at that. I don't have a lot of details, but I'm going to go into my blending mode, and I can go into the overlay mode, hard light mode. I can just go in and play with blending mode if I want to go and work with it. I can also go into another layer and try maybe the dab over here. And then I'm going to go back here and change the stuff that I have to make it more kind of visible all the way here. So I'm going to go in and make the stuff a little more visible, that it's more or less looks like a door, and I have some kind of a drawing that looks like a door. And if I click to save it, it's going to be an art brush that you are working with it. So even if I go into an area that has some kind of path in it, you can go and see that you can go and stroke a path with the art brush as well. And you want to maybe go and practice it with different kind of brushes that you have. You have curly ones over here, so you can see over here, and then you can go into the area and just take less area on more area that you have, and basically taking the colors that you have, and then you can start kind of like designing something with the art brush. If you are looking at your history panel, basically this is what you have. You have the art brush over here, and then I can go in and create another snapshot. Sorry, and I have one and I have two. If I go into the first snapshot, that's going to be the snapshot that I'm going to clone from. So we're almost done. Let's go in and look at one more brush tool that we have. We're going to go to File and Open. And I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to go to the brushes. Over here. And then I'm going to go to my brushes and assets over here. And I'm going to go to Mixer Brush. And what I have over here, again, I have some kind of file to work with. And I'm going to click on the color bar just to look at the stuff that I have here. So the mix of brushes, I kind of going to do something like you saw with the art brush, but you're going to make a decision how to work with the mixer brush, and they really interact in real time with the colors that you have below. I'm going to go to my mixer brush. And then this is what I have all the way up in my control. And it is, I'm going to go and open a new layer. And then I'm going to say sample all layers. And the first one that I have by default right now has the color of the background. It says custom over here. The wetness is 50%. The loading is 100%. And then the mix is 35. And the flow is 100 over here. And then I go in and set the smoothing of the stroke. The higher the value will reduce the shakiness width of the stroke that you have over here. And then in the area over here, you can say stroke catch up and adjust for zoom. But now I'm going to click and drag over here, and look what I have here. It's kind of smoothing and interacting with the layer below, but brings to the mix the other color that I have, because I have another color all the way up here. So what are these two icons next to the color area? The first icon over here, that's going to be the icon that loaded the brush after each stroke. So I'm going to load the brush after each stroke, and look at that. It is going to load, and kind of like the brush tip is dirty. So think about it when you guys are drawing in your studio and you start mixing colors and you don't want to clean the brush, and you start drawing with the brush that has colors from before, and all of a sudden you create a nice robust look with the other colors that you have. So if I go to it here, look at that. This is the I call it the dirty brush, that I can go and work with it all the way here, and that's my dirty brush. I'm going to turn it off and I'm going to open a new one. And this time I'm going to click on the area and go to the other icon next to it. Clean the brush after each stroke. So I'm going to go in and draw a little bit and then clean the brush after each stroke. So all of a sudden you can see that you're not going to work with a dirty brush anymore. So now I'm going to go in and I'm going to say I wanted it to be very wet over here. I want to mix it 100%, and I want to clean it, and look at that. Now, if I'm starting to draw on it, look what happens. It doesn't bring the other color to the mix. It just goes in and mixes the colors that you have and interacts with it. Of course, I can go in and use the brush. And now if I go to the brush, this is the new mixer brush that I just made. So what do you use it for? I'm going to do File and Open, and I'm going to open, let's say, the cabin. And I'm going to open a new layer, and I'm going to call it Roof. And I might use the same brush. I'm going to make sure Sample All Layer is on. And I'm just going to go in and create the roof and give it some kind of a very fast background. And you can see I'm not even paying attention to the details over here. And I'm just going to go back here and clicking and creating some kind, the background of the roof all the way here. Now I'm going to add a new layer, and I'm going to call it Roof Detail. The problem here with the roof detail that you have is going to be that when you are working with the mixer brush and it says sample all layers, it will sample all the layers. So I'm going to turn off the roof. And that's the problem here, because I don't really see the detail in front of me. So I'm going to have to figure it out. And I'm going to mix it all the way. And then that's going to be on top of the roof that I have. And then I can go into the lines and basically click on the lines and start making the details. So if I'm start looking at it, you can see that I'm starting building the lines right now. It might take a longer time, so I might not gonna go and do that. Or I might find another mixer brush that works a little bit better. So when you're working with mixer brush, you have the custom brush, you have dry, very wet, very wet, light mix and heavy mix. So I'm gonna go into the heavy mix right now. And then I'm just gonna go in to the lines that I have here and just going in and go over it. And then you can see here that I have more lines. I'm not gonna finish it, but you can see what I mean. I can start adding some kind of effects over here. And then when you have sample all layers, the problem is if I have sample all layers below that, it will take the stuff that I have. But I'm just gonna go and turn that off. And then maybe I'm going to go in and do the cabin. So once again, I'm going to go in and create the cabin over here. And then I'm going to mix the colors over here. And then mix the colors inside the cabin. Oops. And then go back here. And then I can go in and mix it. By the way, when you're working with the mixer brush, really you need to work with the tablet right away because these are really, really pressure sensitive. If you see me doing something that's not perfect, could be that I didn't actually program my new little tablet the way I wanted, and that's why I don't get exactly what I want. But you can see now that I do have the symbols over here. I do have the brushes. I'm gonna turn it off and go in and create the detail. And I can change it to a different brush, but now I'm gonna be a lot more careful. So I'm going to go in and do the the green detail over here, and maybe also go back here to the tiny little window over here. So I'm gonna get the detail. I have the area that it looks like wood, and then I have another area here that looks like more wood, and maybe even have a little door here and the door that it's going to be all the way down here. So you can see I have some kind of details on top, and then I also can go in to the detail, and then I can make them with different kind of blending mode if I want to go and kind of play with it. But again, I'm going to go and click on that. You can try going to your smudge brush as well and see if it is going to maybe do a better job for you than the mixer brush all the way here. And then if I smudge that, I can go in and you can see that I have some kind of detail for the area that I have. So I can start building the stuff. So you can see I have the one that I finished already. And then when I have the final project over here, this is actually the area that I can work with. And then this is the one that I went in with the mixer brush and kind of created a drawing. Could I have done that with the art brush? Absolutely, I could. So again, you can decide which brushes are you going to use. But now you can see here, I worked on it a little kind of, more in detail. I didn't even name it, but if I go back here, this is one layer over here, and I added the detail, and I added more detail, and I added more detail, and then I made some levels over here. And if I hold on the shift key and turn off the mask, I added level over here just to the area, and you can see here the little cabin is actually has a lot more light into it. So the mix of brushes will work either with dry brushes that you bring in, or it will bring and work with the color below that it's going to go and mix it with it. So if I'm going to go to my door, look at the door over here, This is the group that I have. This is another one. And this is kind of like the main area that I went in and played with. So could I do that with the mixer brush? Absolutely, I can go back here and then I can select that and make a new snapshot. And in this case, I'm going to go in and use the snapshots that I have and go to an art brush and make a new layer. And then depending on the area that you're going to go and work with, you can go back here and then decide that you want to go and work with the brush that you have. So I'm going to go back here and click and drag on the brush and start kind of like playing with the stuff that I have and use the out brush to work with the door that I have. So anytime you are going to work with something, I can go back here and then I'm going to go to drawing tools. And then even if I go in to this image here, I can go into a new layer. I can go in and start working with the mixer brush over here. And then again, with here, it's going to be a lot harder because when you do a face, it is going to be kind of hard to work with because I need to go into the eyes. But you can see what I have over here. I can start playing with the brush and start actually making the face like I drew it. So if you don't know how to draw all the way, you can go and relate on the mixer brushes or the out brushes and start kind of like playing with it. I can always go into the smear brush and smear it a little bit if I feel like it is not the way I want. And then you can see that I can start working. It might not be realistic right now, but it doesn't look like maybe I kind of like draw with it. And then if I go in here, it's a normal and the strength is so much. So I made it a little less. And you can see that I'm going to start working with the mixer brush, or I can start working with the smudge brush as well. And if I zoom out, all the stuff that you do, you want to save your brushes right away and look at that. I'm just going to go back one more time and look at the brushes that I have. And in the flyout menu, I want to go in and you can see here, new brush preset, new brush group. You can rename it. You can see the brush name, the brush tip over here. So right away, you can go in and see the brush tip if you go into the flyout menu. And then also you can go in and append the default brushes, import brushes, get, convert legacy tool preset, and legacy brushes that you have. So if I'm going to go into my legacy brushes over here, I can see the other brushes that I had from before. And then I'm going to click again and look at the brushes. And I'm looking to see if I have the bristle brushes from long time ago that were here. So these are hard brushes. This is mixer 4 brushes that you have over here. And then in the brush setting, let's see what I have and look at that. These are the old mixer brushes that you had before. And then if I go in to just another layer and then work with the mixer brushes, basically the brushes over here, they have some kind of sizes, they have some kind of bristles. So look what I'm doing right now. I'm going to open a new layer. And then I'm going to go to this brush right now. And then I'm going to go into this brush and click on a bristle brush that I have over here, maybe this one. And then I'm going to go back here and draw with it. And then I'm going to go back and draw on this one. And I'm going to go in, and I don't want to make it dual, and I want to make it no scattering. I'm just going to go in and draw with this brush. And then maybe click on that, and I'm going to go and draw. So look what I just did. I just drawing with it. Now I'm going to hold down the Command key, and I'm going to load the selection and say Define Brush Preset. Deselect, go in and open a new layer. And now look at this. This is actually a brush that I just created. So if I'm going to go in to the brush, I'm going to change the size. I'm going to change it a little bit, the spacing. Basically, this is the brush that I can start actually work with to create something. Why is it black and white right now? Because I have black for the foreground. If I'm going to go and make that green and go into the background and make it dark green, select all and delete. Let me just fix it and change it. And I'm going to say color dynamic. And look at the brush that I just created. I can start drawing and create some kind of nice looking background when I want to start drawing. So that's going to be my background to start working. And then on top of that, I can start drawing something. So if I want to go and kind of smudge the area, I can go into my smudge brush, make that a little bit bigger. And this is the smudge brush that I did before. And then you can see that I'm going to start kind of sample all layer and smudging the stuff that I have. And in a minute, you'll see that I'm going to make it a lot smudgier. And look at that. It takes a long time to do it because it's over Zoom right now because I'm actually recording it. So you have to be kind of careful while you're doing with brushes like this. Another trick to work with it just change a little bit the spacing. And once you change the spacing, it is going to work a little bit better. Any questions, you guys, before we are going to finish our session for today? I hope you enjoyed using your brushes. I might go in and look at some stuff that I have, and you can see it took a moment, but I have a lot of samples that I work with just regular brushes and then just play with them. So I might go in before I close it, and I might just go in and open some kind of samples with the stuff that I have. So I have another kind of JPEG over here, and then you can see that was actually done with brushes in Photoshop, just a little turkey for kind of like Thanksgiving with a lot of brushes on top. I'm gonna go in and open another area over here, and then let's see if I have some kind of colors that I have, not this one that I want to go and do. I'm just going to go and open actually the portraits. And then you can see over here, I have few kind of portraits that I used with brushes in Photoshop. I'm gonna actually go close all because it takes a moment and still wants to draw. That's the problem. I'm gonna go close all. I'm not gonna save any of it. And I'm gonna do file and open. And then you can see I have an image over here. That was done with a lot of brushes all over the place over here. This is a brush, and this is a brush, and this is another brush. This is basically brushes that I put on top of the composition over here. I have another one over here that I put bunch of brushes, and then it is the JPEG right now, and then I put some type on it, but basically it is brushes that I used in Photoshop and play with the stuff. What else do I have here? Oh, this is the one that I told you before. Let's see if I have the Photoshop file of it. Maybe I don't have the Photoshop file over here, but this one was done with Photoshop on the iPad, and all over the place you can see brushes. And then if you saw the original was very, very plain and didn't have so many colors. This is another one that I did with brushes in Photoshop, and you can see how I added to it some kind of toning working with brushes. And of course I did another kind of stuff over here. So you need to do a lot of other tricks that you want to work with. This one is a combination of Photoshop and lettering that you have together, and then kind of a collage, but you can see all the way down at the bottom, these are all brushes that I created to create this image. So you do have the PDF that I gave you guys. And then I can go in back and forth to it, and you see actually the samples that you have with the PDF over here with all the stuff. You also have a link all the way down over here, all about brushes that you can go in and look at step by step that you work with the brushes and go over it. So if you needed to go over everything, this is what I have over here. That's the beginning, mastering brushes in Photoshop. Do you need to know a little bit more of Photoshop with it to create better brushes? Absolutely. You need to be one with blending modes, adjustment layers, layer effects, and good selection, and you will create an amazing kind of brushes. Thank you guys for coming today. Thank you for asking questions. Be in touch. We'll have more seminars in the fall. Today is the last seminar in Photoshop. Next week, we are finishing our certification classes. Hope to see you maybe in the summer for certification class, or maybe in the fall for certification class or for our seminar. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys very soon.